Do you guys remember when I thought that Morbius was the worst movie? Chase and Lane are going to the Horror Hound Festival, but Lane soon begins to experience unexplained premonitions. These disturbing visions are tied to the town's past, specifically the Creeper. Honestly, the synopsis goes farther than that, but let's be real, it's irrelevant and quite frankly, it's false advertisement. So let's tackle that first. The synopsis goes on to explain that as the festival gets underway, blood-soaked entertainment builds to a frenzy. Lane begins to believe that something unearthly has been summoned, and that for the first time in 23 years, the Creeper is back. The festival is not nearly in the movie enough to be mentioned in this light. Blood-soaked is a flat-out lie. There was not nearly enough blood in any part of this movie to use the word blood-soaked. And the Creeper being back for the first time in 23 years, that's just what it does. So that bit just, I don't know, it just doesn't gel well with the story. Speaking of story, let me see if I can suss out something relevant to a legible story from the scraps that we were given. For the first time in this series, I am going to give you guys a spoiler warning. I am going to put a timestamp in the description below if you want to skip the spoilers, and this is your last warning, we are getting right into spoiler territory. There is not enough backstory in this movie to make anything or anyone meaningful. There might have been some limitations on the running time and the budget, obviously, but I am a big fan of when movies show us backstory. That said, that was also non-existent, and this element would have been particularly impactful with the relationship between Chase and Lane, who I did not believe were in love even by the end of the movie. I did not believe that they were in love or that they were even a couple. And there was one scene where she had gone out of the room, so he was by himself and he pulled out a ring, and I was surprised. I'm like, you guys love each other? You guys have been together for a long time? Like, there was no connection, there was no chemistry between the two. Speaking of me being surprised, you guys, there's a whole cult. Actually, I did not misspeak. I am not lying. There is a cult, like a creeper cult. It was weird, but I don't mind weird. It could have been interesting, but there was not enough detail and backstory to make this particular element work for the movie. Okay, I watched it so you don't have to, but was it worth the watch? Absolutely not. I cannot recommend this movie to anyone. I am a fan of the original films, the first one in particular, the second one, a little bit. It was fun. And that is the reason why I even bothered with this movie, but you're better off just skipping it. The acting was uninspired and appalling from start to finish from everyone. My question at the end of the movie is it a sequel? Because I've seen online articles saying that the movie's supposed to be a reboot, but there are callbacks and references to the original movies that they're heavier than an Easter egg. So it comes across more as a sequel than it does a reboot. And this really is something that is unclear throughout the entire movie because there are so many plot holes that just completely sink this film. I paused the movie at several moments to ask my honey, and yes, I made him watch this movie with me, honey. I'm sorry. And I paused the movie so many times to ask him a bunch of questions because sometimes I miss some things, so I'll ask him to see if there was some details that I missed, some dialogue that I maybe didn't hear correctly. And no, we were both confused. We both had questions from start to finish. An hour and 35 minutes is way too much time for this movie to do what it did. What did it do, you might ask? It offended fans of the original franchise. Not only that, but the Creeper? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He was not intimidating at all, even when he was throwing people across the rooms and eating their brains. He was a huge miss for me. And while I appreciate the practical effects, it really did look like a dude in a mask and the proportions were way off for me. So he just looked weird. There was very little consistency in terms of lighting and camera angles and continuity thing, so it made the movie very, very difficult to watch. On top of that, the special effects were a disaster. And coupled with the previously mentioned issues, the film as a whole honestly came across unfinished, disjointed, and not thought out completely. There was a point in the movie where I mentioned to my honey that I felt like there was a team of people that all knew the whole story, so they knew start to finish how it was gonna go, what was gonna happen. Then they all like separated into their own corners and each wrote a scene. Then by the end of it, they just strung the whole movie together. And you guys, to publicly announce that this is the first in a trilogy is hilarious. Now, the movie's obviously open for a sequel and even a third one, but that doesn't mean they should make more. So, all you Creeper fans out there, I know you are looking for a silver lining and I will give you one. The Creeper did have a couple moments where he was a little playful, akin to the original movies. For instance, in one scene, he busted a door down. Mind you, the group of people are like screaming their heads off and he just like gives them a little wave. Those little moments were really fun and hilarious. So that brings us to the end of the video where I watched it so you don't have to. Leave a thumbs up on the video if you liked the video, so I know you liked the video. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and while you're down there, have you seen Jeepers Creepers Reborn? I know I ripped on this movie quite a bit, but I don't mind a good reboot. I think the movie had a really unique opportunity to delve more into the creeper and the lore surrounding the creature, or at the very least, set up those details to kind of delve into even more in the sequel in the trilogy. After watching the movie, I feel like it was really limited on budget and the storytelling, but that said, they should have made it a smaller movie. And I don't mean like a shorter film. I still think they could have worked that hour and 35 minutes, but really I mean like a smaller story, a more contained story, single location, and really focused on the characters and really fleshed out the parts of the story that we were given, flesh it out enough to kind of get us excited for the second and third installment so we can get even more details. Maybe it could have been better. Let me know your thoughts on that down below. But until the next video, spread positivity, be safe, take care of yourself. And if no one has already told you, let me be the first to let you know. If you need to go to the bathroom in the woods, you do not need to walk a mile away from your car or people to handle your business. All right? Bye.